All right, everyone, now we're going to do the opposite of what we did on Monday and Tuesday, and we're going to convert from slope-intercept form, which is where y is by itself, and it's written in the equation y equals mx plus b, to standard form, where x and y are together. And today you'll learn that a has to be positive in our equation. Ax plus by equals c. So this value right here has to be a positive number. It can't be a negative number. And we'll practice. It's not too bad to change that to a positive if it happens to be negative. So let's look at number one. Number one, if you notice, y is all by itself. It's already in our slope-intercept form. My goal is to get the x and y on the same side of the equation. I'm going to go ahead and move the negative 3x to the other side. To get rid of a negative 3x, all I have to do is add 3x. And I must add it to both sides of my equation. All right, if I look at this side, I have a y and a positive 3x. They are not like terms, so I cannot add them together. Instead, I just have to write them down. I'm going to put my x first because x came first in the equation. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. I just like it first. And then it is a positive y, so I write plus y equals, on this case, negative 3x and positive 3x make 0, so they are gone. And I'm left with 4. If I look at my equation, x and y are on the same side. My number in front of x is positive, so I'm done. I have my standard form answer. So I'm going to go ahead and write it down as 3x plus y equals 4. All right, now let's go ahead and find our slope and y-intercept. Remember, I like the y equals mx plus b equation to help me with slope and y-intercept. Remember, the slope is always the number with the x. It's the m value in our equation. And in this case, our m value is negative 3. Our y-intercept, on the other hand, is the b value, or the number that's all by itself. And in this case, it's a positive 4, so my y-intercept is 4. All right, just like when previously, our x-intercept is always where y equals 0. Let's go ahead and use this equation to help us figure out what x is when y is 0. So y is 0, and I have equals negative 3x plus 4. Draw my line so I can get x all by itself. First thing I need to get rid of is this minus 4, or this plus 4. To get rid of a plus 4, we minus 4. 0 minus 4 is negative 4. On the other side, we have negative 3x. And a positive 4 and a negative 4 make 0. All right, to get x all by itself, I need to get rid of the negative 3. Currently, 3, or negative 3 and x are multiplying, so I have to divide by negative 3 instead. And I am left with x equals, because this makes 1, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and then I'm left with 4/3. Could change it to a decimal, but it's a repeating decimal, so I'm going to leave it as a fraction. So my x-intercept is 4/3. Let's look at another one together. All right, so my number 2 says 5x plus 6 equals y. Our goal, remember, is to get x and y on the same side. Y already kind of has a side to itself, so I'm going to move that x to join it. To get rid of 5x's, I have to subtract 5x's from both sides of my equation. I know 5x minus 5x is 0, so these are gone, and I'm left with 6 equals. On this side, it says y minus 5x. I can't put those together. One has a y, one has an x, so now I just have to rewrite it. Remember, I like to write my x first, and this x is negative. And the y is positive, so I'll write plus y. Now I'm going to look at my hint from earlier. Remember, in our standard form, the a value, that number in front of the x, has to be positive. Let's look at this equation again. Is our number in front of our x positive? It's not. So to get rid of this negative sign, we have to change the signs of all the different terms. In order to do that, all we have to do is multiply by negative 1. Negative 1 times a positive 6 makes a negative 6. I change the sign from positive to negative. A negative 1 times a negative 5. Negative times a negative is a positive. And I leave my x. All right, if you notice, I change the sign from negative to positive. All right, lastly, I take negative 1 times a positive y. Well, a negative 1 times a positive is a negative, and 1 times y is just y. If you look, all I had to do was change the signs of every number. This positive 6 became negative 6. This negative 5 became positive 5. And a positive y became negative y. All right, so let's look. We have x and y on the same side of our equal sign, and then number in front of the x is positive. We have our standard form. Negative 6 equals 5x minus y. Right. If you remember, I went back to my y, or slope-intercept form, my y equals mx plus b equation, to solve for slope and y-intercept. So I'm going to rewrite that so you could see it, especially if you're not taking notes, which I hope you are. To figure out my slope, remember slope is always the number that's with the x. In this case it is 5, so my slope is 5. The y-intercept is the b value, and our y equals mx plus b. So in this case, my b value is a positive 6. So my y-intercept is 6. Now let's solve for x-intercept. Remember, x-intercept is when y equals 0. Let's go ahead and use our standard form equation this time to solve for our x-intercept. It starts with negative 6 equals 5x. I don't know what x is, so I'm going to write it down. And then it ends with minus y. Well, I know my y value is 0. I can write minus y, but it doesn't really change my equation, so I'm just going to cross it off. Now my goal is to get my variable all by itself, so that tells me I need to get rid of 5. To get rid of 5, we got to do the opposite of what it's currently doing, and it's currently multiplying, so I'm going to divide both sides by 5. I'm left with x, because 5 divided by 5 is 1, equals negative 6/5. Once again, you could change that to a decimal if you want, or just rewrite it as a fraction. All right, last, I will let you, if you think you are ready, go ahead and try the exit ticket questions. Actually, just try it anyway. Tomorrow I'll have another video for you if you need more support.